So here's the deal. Republicans just passed a voter suppression bill through the House, and 4 Democrats helped them do it. It's called the SAVE Act, short for Safeguard American Voter Eligibility. On the surface, it sounds pretty reasonable. It would require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship, like a birth certificate, passport, or naturalization papers, in order to register to vote in federal elections. And to most people, that probably sounds fine. Like, yeah, of course only citizens should vote. And that is already the law. But what this bill does in practice is way more extreme and way more dangerous than it sounds. One reason this bill is making headlines is because 4 Democrats crossed the aisle to vote for it. Their names are Jared Golden from Maine, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington, Ed Case from Hawaii, and Henry Cuellar from Texas. They all represent swing or moderate districts, and they're pitching their votes as common sense, saying things like, American elections are for American citizens. Again, sounds simple, but that framing totally sidesteps the deeper issues here. Here's the truth. Non-citizens voting in federal elections is already illegal, and more importantly, it's incredibly rare. Study after study, including Republican-led investigations, have found virtually zero evidence of non-citizen voting on any meaningful scale. So this bill isn't responding to a real threat. It's responding to fear, or more accurately, using fear as cover. Because what the SAVE Act does do is create brand new barriers for millions of eligible citizens who want to register to vote. And that's where things get dangerous. Voting rights advocates, groups like the Brennan Center for Justice, ACLU, and League of Women's Voters are all sounding the alarm. They warn this bill could disenfranchise huge numbers of eligible voters. Not fraudsters, not non-citizens, actual Americans. Let's talk about who gets hit the hardest. Elderly voters who never had a passport or were born at home without a birth certificate, women who've changed their last name through marriage or divorce but whose documents don't line up, low-income and rural Americans who can't afford to take off work or pay fees to get documents reissued, naturalized citizens who have the paperwork but face language barriers or bureaucratic red tape, young people registering for the first time who might not have had all the documents on hand yet. This bill doesn't create a level playing field, it builds an obstacle course, and the people most likely to get tripped up are the people already on the margins. There's also a legal issue. The SAVE Act might violate the National Voter Registration Act, a law from the 90s that was designed to remove barriers to registering for federal elections. It's what created the whole motor voter system. This bill could immediately trigger legal challenges if it ever became law. And even beyond the legal questions, election officials across the country say it would be a bureaucratic nightmare. States would need new systems to verify citizenship for every voter registration. That's expensive, time-consuming, and full of room for error. People will be wrongly flagged, and when it comes to voting rights, errors aren't just mistakes, they're disenfranchisement. This bill isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a much bigger pattern. Ever since 2020, Republicans across the country have been pushing more restrictive voting laws under the banner of election integrity. The SAVE Act is the federal version of that strategy. It's being used to rally the Republican base around the idea that Democrats are letting non-citizens vote, which again is not true. But the lie is politically useful. It justifies legislation that makes it harder for people most likely to vote Democratic to cast a ballot. And the timing isn't random either. With the 2026 midterms already heating up, this bill isn't just a policy proposal, it's a political signal, and it's designed to spread this playbook nationwide. So let's talk about those 4 Democrats who voted yes. Jared Golden and Marie Gluesenkamp Perez have both defended their votes publicly. Golden said something like, "Elections are for Americans, so this just makes sense." Perez called it common sense for folks in my district. Basically, they're trying to brand themselves as independent, willing to break with their party. That can play well in swing districts, but here's the problem. By backing this bill, they're giving it a bipartisan sheen, a stamp of legitimacy, even if the substance is deeply harmful. Ed Case and Henry Cuellar haven't said much yet, but they've both leaned more conservative than most Democrats on immigration and national security. So while their votes aren't surprising, they still give cover to a bill that undermines voting access. This vote wasn't just symbolic. The SAVE Act didn't pass on party lines. It passed with 4 Democrats helping Republicans give it the illusion of reasonableness, of being common sense. And that makes it more dangerous, not less. Now, will it become law? That's less clear. Republicans have a 53 to 47 majority in the Senate, not enough to break a filibuster on their own, which requires 60 votes. But it is enough if a few Democrats or independents decide to go along. So this thing isn't dead. it's very much alive. And even if it stalls in the Senate, the bigger issue is how it shifts the conversation. It helps normalize voter suppression by dressing it up as security. It makes it easier for the next bill to go further. It lays the groundwork for these provisions to get attached to must-pass legislation in the future. We've already seen this happen at the state level since 2020. Voter purges, shorter early voting, stricter ID laws. If this bill gains traction, we're not just watching state-by-state erosion of rights, we're watching a coordinated national strategy. And the fact that Democrats are starting to help that strategy along, that should set off every alarm. Thank you for watching today's video. Like and subscribe if you're here for straightforward, no-fluff political news coverage. I'm Addison Voss. See you in the next one.